With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
Exactly, it is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No, we Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
From the King Spring Studios here in Smyrna, Georgia, this is A Bunch of Malarkey. I'm your host, Johnny McMahon, and making his triumphant return to the show, Johnny B. Welcome, Johnny B.
Oh, glad to be here.
We're glad to have you back. We've been wondering when you were going to make it back to our little humble studio here.
Been doing a little traveling.
Yeah, that's what we hear. So how was your trip out west?
Oh, it's great. Grand Canyon's still there, and it's a inverted mountain that's fun to look at.
Yeah, I hear it's still there.
Yeah.
So John goes, he's lucky enough to get away every weekend up in the mountains, away from all the mutants that we have to deal with here in the suburbs and the city. So that must be nice getting away every weekend, huh, John?
I don't have to twist anybody's arm to go up there. It is completely fun.
So I usually recap the weekend. My weekend, as you know, I went to the Atlanta Falcons Cincinnati Bengals game yesterday. And surprisingly, it was all disappointment that the Falcons lost, but surprisingly, I didn't run into any crazy mutants. The only problem I had at the game, and it was the same thing when we went to a baseball game last week, John, or 2 weeks ago. At the concession stands, when did they stop giving out the individual packets of ketchup and mustard? You got to go to these filthy pumps that everybody's hands are on. I don't know. What do you think, John? Do you like the pumps or the individual packets of like mustard and ketchup for your hot dogs and French fries? I'm a packet guy. I'm not a pump guy.
I don't like stepping on the packets.
Like the ones people throw
slipping on them and wiping it off my shoes.
But I feel like you really can't make the decision at the pump of how much mustard you really want on your hot dog. You have to be able to take it back to your seat and distribute it accordingly. Like you have an extra bite or two left of that hot dog, and there's just a little smidgen of mustard on it. I feel like you can just add a little bit as needed. Don't you agree with that?
No, I don't. I didn't seem to have that problem.
I don't know. You don't skeeve like everybody's hands all over the pump and everything?
I think maybe it's because I had the veggie burger. And it was about 1.5 inches thick. So I was just trying to get my mouth around it.
I don't know. There's something about communal things. Like, I don't go to buffets. I've never been a fan of buffets. People go back for seconds with the same filthy plate and then tap the spoon against the plate they just ate on. It's just something about, the community type pumps and spoons, and I steer clear of it. As you know, I'm neurotic.
Maybe the pump just helps build up your immunities too.
Yeah, I'm thinking that
your exposure to bacteria.
So, John, did you know that today? Well, it's October 1st, right? That you know. But did you also know that today is not international? It's National Black Dog Day, National Hair Day, which I can't really take part in, National Homemade Cookie Day, and World Vegetarian Day. I mean, you must hear this on the news a lot. Today is National Something Day. How many things can you have in one day?
Who decides what is a national day?
Exactly.
How's that determined?
I don't know.
I don't really know.
I actually tried to find this out. If anybody out there who listens knows the answer to this, put it in the comments, because I actually tried to find that out.
Does it take an act of Congress?
I don't know.
Mean, if so, then maybe they need to be working on other things.
Yeah, like tomorrow, right, John? Tomorrow's National Custodian Day. Now, I'm not saying custodians shouldn't be recognized. They're great people. They do the jobs that a lot of us would never do. But then you combine that. Why can't the custodian have his own day tomorrow? You got to do National Name Your Car Day. John, what's the name of your car?
It has no name.
I've never named a car in my life.
Well, I named my first car.
Oh, what was the name of that car?
Olive.
Should I ask?
It was because it was a 1959 Ford that was green on the inside, green on the outside, and it was an ugly green like the color of an olive.
Oh, that makes sense. I thought maybe it had to do something to do with Popeye's girlfriend.
No.
So we've got these days, like this week, October 3rd, National Boyfriend Day. Okay, I get it. But then you've got National Walk and Bike to School Day, Cinnamon Roll Day, Crunchy Taco Day. I mean, you can't celebrate the soft taco that day, folks. It's got to be the crunchy taco. But like you said, I tried to find this out. Who decides this? And there's even a Fluffernutter Day coming up. When was the last time you had Fluffernutter?
I have no recollection at all.
Didn't Elvis eat Fluffernutter? Wasn't he famous for that?
What is Fluffernutter?
It's like a marshmallow stuff you put on peanut butter sandwiches, I think.
Okay.
Didn't he used to eat that, or peanut butter and bananas? Something. One of the two put him on that toilet and killed him. I'm not sure which one. Rest in peace, King. No offense, meant on that. But he did like one of the two, right?
I don't
Elvis.
know.
I could have sworn it was Fluffernutter, but it could be banana and peanut butter. But there's actually a national day for it. So I just thought I'd point that out before we moved on to the mutants. So, like I said, I didn't run into too many mutants, surprisingly, because I was all over this weekend. Back at Costco, and no, I didn't buy the European cookies again. I didn't buy the big pumpkin pie. We had to get some stuff for the party. So no mutants at Costco. Really no mutants at the Atlanta Falcons game. But we did have our nominees last week for the Mutant of the Week. And in pretty much a landslide, the guy who wiped his ass with the fruit beat out the woman who let her kids drive the bus, the school bus driver. John, who had your vote last week?
I would say the guy that wiped his butt with a... What?
They didn't specify the fruit. They had to throw like 2 pallets of fruit out because they weren't sure which ones touched his ass crack.
Right. I'd vote for that one.
Now, have you ever seen anyone wipe their ass in a produce aisle with fruit?
No.
Have you ever thought about it?
No, I've never even thought about it.
So this week, John, I mean, I think he won 79 to 21%, the fruit guy. This week, you're going to get a kick out of this, John. Here are our nominees, folks, for Mutants of the Week, or Mutant of the Week. This first one is great. This is another heavyweight bout. John, a grandmother in Titusville, Florida, opened her blinds early Friday morning, expecting to see her cat hanging out on the back porch as usual, only to see a nude man standing there, according to police. Axel Rivera, 28, was wearing a 2-piece jail outfit and a pair of flip-flops when he faced a judge that afternoon on charges of burglary and exposing his sexual organs. That's 3 more items of clothing than Titusville police said Rivera was wearing when he was discovered on Penelope Peterson's screen porch about 2 o'clock in the morning. When questioned, Penelope said, "I always look first. I opened the blinds and said, 'What the hell is that? That's not my cat,' as she looked on to a naked man. What she did to scare him away was she popped out her dentures. She yelled, 'Grandma, no teeth,' as Rivera took off running before he was captured by police. He's being held on $20,000 bail." The question, John, who's the bigger mutant? The guy nude on the porch or the woman who scared him away with her teeth?
I'd like to know how she knew that it would scare him away.
I don't know.
What do you think was going on there?
Well, if you saw her picture, I don't have it in front of me. If you Google the story later, you might you might figure that out very quickly. But that's in that story. Like, I don't know who to pick as the mutant. I mean, yeah, I guess the guy. No, I think the woman who took her teeth out and scared. I think she's the mutant.
She understands payback.
Right. All right. So that's our first nominee. We're going to say it's Penelope Peterson, the scare away the naked guy with her teeth. The second one really is crazy, John. This goes to North Carolina now. A woman in North Carolina concealed her mother's dead body for months in her home so she could see the stages of death, police say. The case began when Donna Sue Hudgens, 69 years old, went to a funeral home to make arrangements for her mother, 93-year-old Nellie Mae Hudgens. Donna Sue Hudgens claimed that her mother died that morning, but she did not know where EMS had taken the body. When the funeral home employees weren't able to locate her mother's 93-year-old body, they became concerned and called the police department. Authorities went to this woman's home and spoke with Donna Sue Hudgens, who lived there as well. They found the body badly decomposed and said it had been there for 2 to 3 months. She died from natural causes. No foul play was suspected, police said. But she's charged with felony concealment of death, and she's scheduled to appear in court on November 7th. Okay, I have a lot of questions. I didn't know there were stages of death. I thought you just rot. If you're not put in a refrigerator, I thought that's the next stage is rot. Am I right? Do you know of any stages of death?
I don't know the stages, but maybe it seems like that's the reason that woman wanted to find out the stages.
I'm willing to bet that it's going to come out that this woman was collecting her Social Security checks and cashing them. That's the reason why she didn't report the death. I'm willing to bet she needed 2 or 3 extra months of Social Security.
Could be.
Yeah, I guarantee that's coming. And where do you have this? You just leave it on the couch, it's rotting away in a summer in North Carolina, and you're just observing this. I mean, people are sick.
So she didn't report the death?
No, she didn't report it.
Okay.
It's 3 months later. She went down to a funeral home and said, I want to make arrangements.
Oh, okay.
And they said, where's the body? And she says, I don't know which hospital or whatever has it. And when they did some research, calling around, the funeral home said, where's the body? After they're calling all these hospitals, and they contacted the police department. And then when they showed up at this woman's house, the mother's rotted 2 to 3 month old dead body is sitting on the couch or whatever. I mean, come on, people. If someone dies, call the proper people. There are no stages of death. You're dead. You rot. Even if you have a walk-in refrigerator. Let's move on with that. So, as I mentioned on the preview video, John, I'm driving home yesterday. Our topic today, we're going to talk about shit we've seen on the highways and byways in our lifetime, stories from the road, I'll call it. I was driving home on I-75 northbound yesterday after the Falcons game, and I saw a woman clipping coupons in her car with a scissor. She had the coupons leaning against the steering wheel, and she's cutting coupons in the center lane going about 75 miles an hour. Isn't that sick? I mean, that's not something that could wait until you got home to do. You had to do them on the highway or when you got to the store's parking lot.
Do you think that's a violation of Georgia's new hands-free law?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think the hands-free law has actually been working here because I see less and less people on phones and stuff. But, I mean, what are some crazy things you've seen on the road over the years, John? You've done a lot of driving in different parts of the country. What are some crazy stuff you've seen? You know,
there's a story that I heard that's really not crazy, but I found it very, very fascinating. And this story was told to me by a friend. And this friend's dad, I think they lived up in Minnesota or someplace like that.
Okay.
And the dad was driving to work one morning, and it was a very cold morning, and was going down a country road, and a bunch of cars were pulled off by the side of the road, and there was a pond there.
Okay.
And there was a police officer there. And so the dad pulled over to see what was going on.
Okay.
And apparently the pond had frozen, and there were some ducks trapped in the middle of the pond.
Okay.
And all the people were standing around trying to figure out, well, how are we going to save these ducks? And because the ice had frozen, but it probably wasn't thick enough for anybody to walk on. And even if you could walk out there, what are you going to do with the ducks? So this guy's dad pulls over, and he talks to the policeman, and he says, you want to save the ducks? And then the policeman says, yeah, that's why everybody's here. And he says, well, then call the fire department. So the policeman looks at him and says, what do you mean call the fire department? He says, you want to save the ducks? Call the fire department. Call the fire department right now. So the policeman says, okay, I'll call the fire department. So he calls the fire department. Fire department shows up. Guy goes over to the fireman and says, stick your hose in the water and start pumping water into the pond.
Mm-hmm.
And so sure enough, they pump water into the pond. The ice all cracked away, and the ducks paddled off.
Oh, wow. So I like to, over the years, I don't do it anymore because there's too many crazy people out there. But I like to, when there's a road rager on the road, I usually steer clear now. But there was this one time I was on my way home from work. This is back in New York on Long Island. It was a stormy day, and this guy in a big box truck that said Ed's Home Improvements on it was driving erratically, cutting people off, and he was totally crazy. So on the truck, it had his office number and Ed's cell phone number. So a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, what are the odds that Ed himself is in that truck now that I have a cell phone number? This is 2004. There weren't smartphones, but we had a basic cell phone that could text. So I dialed the number, and the gentleman answers, hello. I go, hey, Ed. And he says, yeah, who's this? I go, it's me. He says, who? I said, come on, Ed. Are you in Long Beach yet? Because that was the town we were driving through. He says, yeah, I'm in Long Beach. Who is this? I said, you're kind of driving like an asshole past Walbaum's, which was a supermarket, right? He says, who the fuck is this? So kids were crossing the street. I said, Ed, watch those kids. And he's like, who is this? Now this really long traffic light in Long Beach turned red, and we were stuck. I was behind him, and these two big guys, they look like bodybuilders, were in the car next to him in a BMW. So Ed says to me, I'm going to find you. I said, Ed, you're looking right at me. So he's looking around. He gets out of his truck in the pouring rain. He's looking all around to see who's on their phone. I have the phone down now because I'm fucking with him. So he gets back in the truck, and I say, Ed, you better get back in that truck before someone kicks your ass. He goes, if I find you, I'm going to kick your ass. So I noticed these two guys in the BMW, and I said to Ed, you'd have to catch me first. My black BMW is too goddamn fast for that truck. So he makes eye contact with the two guys in the black BMW and goes up to them and starts pounding on their window for them to get out of the BMW. The light turns green. I go past the truck, and I see the two guys in the BMW get out, and they start to go at it. I don't know what the hell happened, if Ed got his ass kicked, but that was the end of that story. So Ed hopefully learned his lesson and never drove like an asshole again. So what do you think the odds, well, that Ed was actually in that truck? So I said, let me give it a shot. So what else you got for road rage or road stories?
Well, I do have one that personally involved me when I was in Ireland.
Ooh, an Irish story fits
Yes.
so well with a bunch of malarkey.
Yes, and as you know, in Ireland, you drive on the left side of the road.
Okay. Yes, you do.
I had a rental car. And I remember I was going down through this, I was in a country road, and it came to a little tiny village. And heading into the village, I realized I was lost and I was going the wrong way. And so I'm driving through the village, and there's a guy, has his car pulled over on the left side of the road, and it looked like he was like getting newspapers or something out of the back, out of the back trunk. I'm driving through, and of course I'm trying to look for road signs, and I'm lost, and all of a sudden the rear view mirror on the passenger side, which is the left side of the car, hits his rear view mirror.
Kaboom!
Kaboom! And I go by, and I look in my rear view mirror and realize he didn't even look up. He didn't even stop. And so I just kept driving. And then I get through the little village, and I realize I'm going the wrong way. So I turn around, and I start coming back through the village, worried that the guy's going to see you. Well, he has now moved to the other side of the road, moved his car to the other side of the road, and I'm going through, and I hit him again. And he still didn't look up. By the time I got done driving after a week, I had knocked both side mirrors off and part of one of the bumpers. I get to the airport thinking, well, and I've got the two side mirrors thrown in the trunk and part of the bumper thrown in the trunk. I get to the airport, and I think, this is going to cost me a fortune when I check it in. So I pull up, and the guy's standing there with his clipboard, going around doing everything.
The checklist.
His checklist, and I'm thinking, God, this is probably going to be $1,000.
Sure.
At least. I'm going to get, if I'm lucky, it's going to be $1,000. And lo and behold, he goes down through his checklist, walks up to the window and says, everything's okay, chap. Go ahead.
I guess mirrors and bumpers weren't on that checklist.
I guess they're so used to American drivers coming over there, and if they get out without just completely wrecking the car, it's a good day.
If you don't pull it in like John Candy and Steve Martin in Planes, Trains, Automobiles, they let you go. I had a story on my way to work. I think this is going back to 2001. I mean, I love the horn, John. Even here, I try to be careful here because everybody's packing heat down here. So I try not to blow the horn if I don't have to. But I find myself always on the horn because people are on phones and screwing around, watching DVDs, applying makeup, eating. But I saw once a guy, when you get the crumbs to the last few pieces of potato chips at the bottom of the bag, driving without looking with his head inside the potato chip bag, leaning his head back and pouring the rest of the crumbs into the bag. So I'm always on the horn. When I see something like this, I'm always on the horn. So one morning back, I think it was like 2001. It was like November. I remember because it was like right before Thanksgiving. I'm on my way to work. Along the way, some douche cuts me off, so I hold down the horn. When I let go of the horn kept blowing. I was like, oh, shit, what do I do now? So I pulled off on the shoulder to try to remedy the situation. Nothing I did worked except when I shut the car off. So I had to get to work. I was only 3 miles from my house. I worked 20 miles away, so I had 17 miles to drive now during rush hour in New York with a horn that wouldn't stop. So I'm figured, all right, I did have another car, but I didn't want to go home and switch it out and go back into my neighborhood and wake up the neighbors. So I'm like, how do I drive with a wailing horn the rest of the way to work? The first light I got to, people were all waving their hands in the air, looking in their rearview mirrors, thinking I'm honking at them, giving me the finger. Then I passed the school bus where all the kids had their faces pressed against the window to see what the fuck my problem was. I then said I have to go home. So I get to the residential area near my home. It's actually 7:15 a.m. because I have notes on this, and people hear a madman coming down the street. Parents at bus stops were staring at me, thinking I'm just insane. It was very humiliating. So I pulled around the block to my house. I shut the ignition off and let the car coast the rest of the way till I got in front of my house and parked it on the curb. I didn't realize later on that all I had to do was pull the fuse in the fuse box to the horn. I could have remedied the situation and saved myself a lot of aggravation that morning, but I ended up taking the other car to work and then figuring it out later on. But you want to see enraged people at red lights thinking I'm telling them to go through the red light, giving me the finger. I'm surprised nobody got out of their car and wanted to cause a brawl.
I've got a good horn stuck story. That reminds me, when I was in high school, my dad had a Jeep, and he worked at a gas station, and, I used to use the Jeep to plow snow and stuff like that. And I had asked this girl out, and my dad said, he and my mother were going to use the car so I could take the Jeep. And this girl had told me, she said, I just need to tell you up front, I'd like to go out with you, but my dad does not like you. So you need to be on your best behavior when you come over. So I thought, okay, fine. I'll show up on time. I'll get there early, and I'll be very respectful. So lo and behold, I come down the road, turn into her driveway, and the horn on the Jeep started to blare, and it wouldn't shut off.
Great first impression.
Yeah, so I'm sitting out in the driveway. The horn is just blaring. So I thought, God, they're going to see me. He's going to come out and say, my daughter isn't going anywhere with you. So I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll jump out of the Jeep, and then they'll see the horn is going by itself. So I jump out of the Jeep just as her dad opens the door, and the horn stopped blowing.
So he thought you were being just an obnoxious asshole.
So the girl comes out and says, gee, thanks a lot.
Well, a few years ago, I learned never to blow a horn or yell at anyone on a road within a mile radius of your job. Because one morning, I worked for a computer firm, and I was on my way to work, and the company was located near all the courts and county offices in that particular town. So traffic there in the morning was a nightmare. On a spring morning, I'm about a mile away from the office when this old guy, I could see the top of his head, he was all gray, like white almost, in a Honda Accord, was tying up traffic, driving really slow in the left lane. I passed him on the right, and I held down the horn, and I yelled something like, "Drive fast, you asshole." Gave him the finger, went on my way to work, and got my day started. Around lunchtime, I was making my way around the office to gather up my lunch buddies to go eat, as we always did. As I was making my way around, this older gentleman in the sales department named Doug said to me, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm okay, Doug. Were you in a hurry this morning?" And I said, "No, Doug, what do you mean?" He says, "You were blowing your horn at me and telling me to drive faster and told me to fuck off on Old Country Road." Well, my face must have turned 10 shades of red. I had no idea that it was the guy I worked with in the office. He started laughing and we made a joke out of it, but it was humiliating. So, folks, if you do have some slight road rage or like to blow the horn or curse people out, make it within 2-3 miles of the office. It might be a good learning lesson. Right, John?
Yeah, that's a good lesson right there.
So what else do you have for us about road stories?
Well, I have one where when I first came to Atlanta and I had practicing law downtown, and I used to take them back then before the MARTA train started to run. They had the MARTA buses,
Right.
and when they first started them, they were 15 cents, so it was very cheap. So
15 cents.
15 cents. So I was standing out on Roswell Road and waiting for the MARTA bus to come by, and this lawyer that knew me was driving by, and he stopped and said, "Hey, you want to ride?" Well, it so happened that lawyer was the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court at the time.
Oh, boy.
So I get in the car and just visiting with him and trying to be on my best behavior, and he goes down the road. We get on the expressway for a short ways, and the expressway is like a parking lot, so we have to just sit there.
Right.
And I look over to the right, and a man is standing up on the bank, completely naked. So
Mutant.
Yeah. So, what is it you say to the Supreme Court justice that you're riding with when there's a guy naked exposing himself?
Probably nothing.
And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, well, maybe he won't look over. Well, he looks over, and I think his comment was, my.
You didn't elaborate any further on that, John?
That was kind of the end of it.
There was this, I don't remember the name, and they're probably still in business, so it's good that I don't. There was this kosher deli in Long Beach, where I lived for many years. And on the back of their catering van, they would make home deliveries for people ordering corned beef sandwiches and pastrami and all that. And on the back, it said, "Follow me for the best corned beef sandwich in town," on the back door of each of their catering vehicles. So one night I'm driving home from dinner with, I think it was a girlfriend on a Friday night, and this van comes out of nowhere and cuts us off and is driving erratically. So I wasn't going to do anything, but I said, let's follow this guy, because it says, "Follow me for the best corned beef sandwich in town." So I followed this guy on his whole route, making all his dinner deliveries. The guy was getting paranoid. He called the police on me. So now I'm sitting behind the van. The guy's making a delivery. Lights come on behind my car. Police get out of the car, come to the car window, and said, "This gentleman claims you are following him. Is there a problem? Did a fight take place?" I said, "No, officer. Read the back of his truck." And the officer looks over and, "Follow me for the best corned beef sandwich in town." I said, "I'm just doing what the van tells me to do." He said, "Got me on that one." Left me alone. Meanwhile, I was just messing with the guy because he was cutting up, but I must have followed this guy for an hour and 15 minutes. And the guy kept getting out at each stop and seeing the lights behind the van, looking back at me. But it said, "Follow me." I found a loophole in the law. I couldn't get in trouble for it, so I followed him. But I never had that best corned beef sandwich in town, unfortunately. Never got to have it.
I think most people recognize that, like, if you're driving and you run a stop sign and the police officer sees you, they give you a ticket, and then you pretty much have to show up in court.
Right.
Well, I had never thought about what happens to you if you're driving in a foreign country and you run a stop sign or run a red light. And how do you have to come back to show up in court even though you're on an itinerary?
And you'll never be back.
And you'll never be back? Well, I had never really thought of that. And then I think I was in Spain, and I was driving, and I was in Madrid, and it was a very crowded day, and a police officer is standing there directing traffic at this very busy intersection. And apparently I didn't see the light or something, and I ran through, and he was blowing his whistle at me and saying, pull over. And so I pull over, and he walked over, and I immediately, everything's running through my mind like, God, we're supposed to be leaving here and going to someplace else. What about a traffic ticket? Does it have any impact on my ability to travel? Will I be able to get back on a plane? I didn't know any of this. And so he walks over, I roll down the window, and he starts talking to me in Spanish, and it's and I just looked at him, and I went, pardon me?
Pardon me? Would you have any Grey Poupon?
I go, pardon me? And he goes, to his finger, just get out of the way, please go. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you get pulled over, don't speak their language.
Exactly. I one time got even with I don't like to get in confrontations on the road. Like I said earlier, you don't know who has a gun, and this is going back many years ago in New York, and people don't really carry guns in cars in New York. You're not allowed to. So I used to work retail, so I was home certain days of the week. And one particular weekday afternoon, I was doing my errands, and I don't know what happened, but this guy was like tailgating me, and I brake checked him a couple of times, and he got angry and went out in front of my vehicle and then kind of turned his car sideways, almost perpendicular to mine, so I couldn't get around him. He gets out of the car, and now it was a nice day. I had my windows rolled down, and comes to my driver's side and starts taking punches at me through the window. And I'm ducking the punches, and he might have landed a punch or two. Now I'm saying to myself, if I get out and get into a fight with this guy, the police will probably come. We'll both be arrested. Let him get his frustrations out and just get the hell out of here. So after cursing and kicking my car and taking swings at me, he drove away. But I had the presence of mind to write down his license plate number. Now, in New York, you don't call the police all the time. You kind of take things into your own hands. So I had a friend who worked for a insurance company. And I called her up and I said, I need you to do me a big favor. She says, what's that? I go, if I give you a license plate number, now, could you run it for me and give me an address? Now, they had this system there, I guess, linked to the motor vehicles to see if people had points on their licenses when they were giving them insurance quotes. She goes, I really could get fired for this, but give me 15 minutes, I'll call you back. Called me back later that afternoon, said, here's the gentleman's name, his address, everything. She had everything on him. I said, thank you so much. She goes, I don't want to know what you're going to do or what's going on, but there you go. So I had a brick in the backyard. I had a pile of bricks. I took a brick and a Sharpie marker, and I wrote on the brick, this is what happens when you're an asshole, and I named the road, on this road at such and such a date. And there was no GPS or anything, so I looked on a map where this guy lived. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning now. I drove. I saw his car in front of the house. He was parked on the street. I got out, and I threw the brick through the back window of the car, and I left. So when he got up the next morning, he probably found the brick and realized who did it, and there was nothing he could do. So that was my revenge on a road rager. Yeah, it was 12 hours too late, 12 hours later, but never too late, I guess, right?
Right. I haven't been really involved in much road rage, but I do have a memory of a story where an incident happened on the MARTA bus that was kind of made me feel good. And that was, I had, for some reason, I don't know, I think I'd had a doctor's appointment or something, and I was going into work, and it was mid-morning. So it was probably like 10:30 or so, and I got on the MARTA bus, and there was maybe 2 or 3 or 4 other people on there. And there was this one man that was sitting there, and he was just huge, just a huge muscular guy wearing bib overalls, and he was slumped over, and he was sleeping. But he looked like a pile of rocks sitting there. And I'm assuming he probably had a night job, and he had gotten off, and he's riding home, and he's dead tired. Well, as you know, the MARTA bus would stop at every stop, and we get down toward downtown, and a couple of young guys got on there, and they were really feeling their oats, and they were really being smart asses, and there were like 3 or 4 of them that got on, and it happened that the bus driver was this woman bus driver, and these guys got on, and they were yelling at people, and they're making a lot of noise, and she asked them to calm down, and they got in her face, and they were getting ugly, and they were challenging people, and it was kind of like they were taking over the bus. And I thought, ooh, this could get ugly, because, you know, you guys got on, you don't know whether they got weapons or what's going to happen. And you could tell that she was very nervous because of her. She got people on there, and she can't take these guys on. Well, it got kind of heated and got kind of loud, and something happened that caused the big man in the overalls to wake up.
Oh, boy. Sleeping giant.
And he's sitting about 2 seats in front of me. And he leans his head up. And you can see he's looking around, kind of waking up like, what's going on here? And he realizes there's these 3 or 4 young black guys that are causing a bad problem. And he is a great big black man. And, you know, this is back at the time I thought, I don't know if there's going to be something racial going on here or not. But anyway, he looks up, and he looks at the bus driver, and then he looks back at these guys, and he goes, you guys sit down and shut up, or I'm going to throw all of you off this bus right now. And then he stood up, and he was just, he had to duck. He was so tall. And I thought, and sure enough, all of those boys just sat down like choir boys. And I thought, yes, there is justice.
Nobody yelled World Star, World Star.
There's justice on the MARTA bus.
Well, it's funny because nowadays everything's filmed. There are hundreds and thousands of these fight videos on YouTube. People film them with their phones, and you can watch compilations. Like sometimes I'll be watching, and what they do, John, is when a fight breaks out, they yell World Star. World Star Hip Hop is a website where they go and they upload all these videos to. So when a fight breaks out now, people start yelling World Star, World Star. So my wife will come in the room hearing people yelling World Star because I'm watching like 2 hours straight of all these public fight videos. They even have them narrowed down to genre where you can watch fast food fight videos. If you want to watch nothing but fights in fast food restaurants, you can watch 2 hours worth of real videos that people filmed. They're all over YouTube. So if you're ever bored and you want to watch some good fights, and you know, boxing sucks nowadays. I don't know if you're into MMA, but these YouTube videos, John, you could get lost for hours in this shit.
So you mean if a fight breaks out, people start yelling World Star?
Because they know the video.
Somebody else will record it?
No, because everybody's already recording it. They yell World Star for a couple of reasons. Because they know it's going on World Star and to incite the fight. Because people might just be arguing, and when somebody yells World Star, everybody knows what it means, that it's the fight. So it actually instigates the fighting even further. Oh, geez. So you got to check it out, John. If you ever bored up in the mountains, you know, open your phone and watch some World Star videos. But so let me ask you something, John. Sure. Switching gears here a little bit. Would you be willing to spend 30 hours in a coffin?
If I were alive?
Yeah, if you're alive, like for a contest.
No.
Because Six Flags, you know, the big amusement park chain, they're celebrating their 30 years of screams during Fright Fest 2018. And they have what's known as a 30-hour coffin challenge. And I was thinking about doing this for other reasons, which I'll explain. 6 coffin dwellers are going to be chosen to spend 30 hours in a coffin from 1 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, October 13th, until 7 p.m. on Sunday the 14th. If you think you could spend 30 hours in a coffin, you have to fill out the registration form, and they're going to pick 6 people. But listen to these rules. You must be 18, I get it, photo ID. You cannot have any medical conditions. Fine. You must be able to fit in a 2-foot by 7-foot coffin. So if you're a really huge guy, like the guy on the bus, it probably wouldn't work for you. Provide your own pillow and sleeping bag or blankets. Check in by 11:30 that Saturday. And you get breakfast in bed. Well, all meals, snacks, and drinks are in bed, which is the coffin. You get 1 6-minute bathroom break every hour. Random visits by the Fright Fest freaks. Those are probably those people that come to the coffin and try to scare the shit out of you and knock on the coffin. And, you know, those, like when you go to those haunted houses. And a Six Flags representative will be available at all times. And you even get a phone charging station. Now, we got to rewind here for a minute. When I first heard this, I'm like, shit, 30 hours in a coffin. I don't get a good night's sleep. We've got 3 dogs and a cat. The cat's up all night like everybody's cat, so you know. people with children, I'm sure you deal with kids getting up early too. But when you have dogs, they don't give a shit what time of the night it is. And we have two of them sleeping in our bed, a 27-pound beagle and a 40-pound beagle. They put claws in your back all night. You're sleeping on like a postage stamp sized part of the mattress. It's very uncomfortable. So I don't sleep very well at night. So when I saw 30 hours in a coffin, I said to my wife, this is the answer to my problem. Instead of paying $200 a night for a nice hotel room, I'll go sleep in the coffin at Six Flags. But then I found out that it's all this other shit, that these freaks are going to be visiting you, and it's not going to be any better asleep than sleeping with my dogs. But it's not something you would do. You get $300 still, by the way, if you complete it.
Is the coffin closed or open?
It doesn't say. I would
How do you
imagine.
breathe?
I would imagine if the bottom's maybe closed and the top part where your face is open.
Oh.
But I wouldn't want people coming and looking at me, and I don't know. I thought it was the concept was cool, because I'm like, if they just throw you in the coffin and say we'll be back in a day and a half, I would have signed up for it. I would have flew to St. Louis. But this is no fun. So that's it with the coffin. I thought that it was going to be a
Kind of reminds me.
a restful thing.
That kind of reminds me of back in the 60s I think it was the 60s when they used to have contests of how many people could fit in a phone booth.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of reminds me of that.
But I want to know, who needs a 6-minute bathroom break every hour? Like, to me, like a contest, if they say you have to be in a coffin for 30 hours, you should not be able to come out. Like, if you're laying there with your own pillow and blanket on a phone, you're going to be allowed your phone and eating. That's not really that hard of a contest. I mean, you tell them that maybe the coffin is shut and there's a little air hole and you can't do anything. You have to wear like a diaper to piss yourself. No, that's a contest. But not being able to get out every hour and eat, and that's not real. Who can't do that? It's not very challenging. I'm just saying. So that's it with the Halloween challenge. Now, as you know, folks, I mentioned it in the preview video today. My book, A Whole Lot of Shenanigans, is officially coming out on October 13th, but it is available on Amazon right now. If you go to Amazon, type in A Whole Lot of Shenanigans. You can get the paperback or the ebook. If you want to wait until after the 13th, if you're looking for a personalized copy, I know a lot of friends and people on Facebook are asking for a signed copy. That won't be available till after October 13th. I have books on order, and I will be setting up a channel through eBay or PayPal or a personal channel to get you those copies. But if you're looking for it now and you want to start laughing now, just go to Amazon. It's a 240-page book. I tried to make it as affordable as I can, because honestly, Amazon takes about 60-some-odd% of the fee of the posted price. So I tried to make it as affordable as I can for you guys. I think you'll like it, John. I know you and your wife have heard a bunch of the stories, and you've enjoyed them.
Absolutely.
And you know the area pretty well, so you can kind of relate to the characters that come around here.
For sure.
So 240 pages, a great laugh from cover to cover. Don't recommend it for kids under 18 years old because of the language in there. But if your kid can handle some language and he's 16 or 17, use your discretion. But great stocking stuffer, folks. Christmas is, unfortunately, well, actually, I don't mind Christmas, but it goes fast. It's 2.5 months away, 3 months away. So if you're thinking about a little stocking stuffer, or you know how they have those grab bags in the office, like where you buy a little gift and everybody does like a Secret Santa. You might want to think about for your Secret Santa. The lucky person will get my book, of course. So I just wanted to throw that out there again, folks. It'll be available October 13th, a personalized copy. If you want it now, you can go to Amazon.com, and it is free shipping for Prime account members. And I hope you enjoy it. So, John, what of the stories you heard, what story comes to mind and makes you laugh that you could think of right off the top of your head? I know you like the bra money story.
Yeah, the titty money story.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice, but yeah, it does say titty in there, folks. So if that offends you, it might not be the book for you. What do you think, John? Should I read the titty money story for them? Should I give them a little preview of the titty money story?
Sure. Seriously, I think you could just flip open the book and pick any one.
Yeah, and what's great about it, folks, it's not like a continuous read where you have to like leave off and you forget where you left off. Each story stands on its own, so they're a bunch of short stories. So
Great bathroom book.
it is a great bathroom book, although I hope you don't wipe your ass with it. But it is a great, yeah, it is, where you can read 2 or 3 stories, and then if you need to do something, you can get right back to the book. It's not like where you're caught up in this drama where you might forget where you are. They're all individual stories. If you count the real short stories along with the regular stories, there's about 50 stories in the book. So I think I think it'll have you laughing.
What about the story about the guy that wanted change or something out of the machine?
He thought the parking meter machine was an ATM.
That was it.
I'll read that one.
Can you read that one?
Yeah, I sure can. This is a pretty short story. Let's find it. It's called I Declare Stupidity. And I think you'll like this one, folks. All right, that's the one about the piss in the water balloon. There we go. All right, folks. During my first year working at the parking lot, customers were able to pay for their parking a couple of different ways. If they were paying cash, they would come up to the window of my little shack, which you'll see on the back of the book, and pay the parking fee in exchange for a little ticket I would give them, which they would place on their vehicle dashboard to show that they paid. I did not have a credit card reader, so if they were using a credit or debit card, they were forced to use a kiosk outside the window. The kiosk had on-screen instructions printed on the machine just above the screen, and a giant instructional sign that I designed taped to it. Despite that, I would say more than 70% of the customers using that kiosk could not figure out how to use it. I would shout step-by-step verbal instructions to every customer using the kiosk. This exchange turned a 15 to 20 second transaction into several minutes. This, in turn, would make the other customers waiting in line very angry. At that parking lot during the week, when most people were headed to court, they were easily pissed off, and they were already mad that they had to be there. They were stressed out and usually running late. By Wednesday of each week, after giving verbal instructions to hundreds of customers about that kiosk, I had no voice left. I mentioned this problem to the owners of the parking lot many times, and I suggested that a credit or debit card terminal that I could use inside the shack at the window would eliminate the confusion, speed up the line, and save my voice. For about a year, they just blew it off and said, no. Finally, after several rants, you know me, folks, I can't stay calm, they caved in and got me that handheld credit card machine that I could use inside the little shack that I was in. The difference was felt immediately, folks. I put a big sign on the outdoor kiosk that said pay at the window with a big arrow. I can now process payments within 15 or 20 seconds, get people on their way, not have to explain the kiosk. It was great. Everybody was happy. But as with anything, folks, come stupid people, or mutants as we call them. One morning I was once again mired in the morning rush, and I was processing customer after customer. I noticed a guy yapping away on his cell phone while fucking around with the kiosk outside that had a giant pay at window sign. Now, folks, you can make the sign the size of a billboard. People are still going to not read. By the time I got everyone in line processed and got to this guy, which was about 5 minutes, this ass clown was off his phone, hostile, and ready to start a ruckus with me. Hi, sir, can I help you? Now we'll call him the ATM ass clown. This is some motherfucking bullshit. What's wrong, sir? Now he's holding up his $5 receipts for parking space number 12 that he had just paid for. My money didn't come out. What money, sir? The money out of your goddamn ATM. Handing me his 5 receipts. I should have gotten $25 out. Here are my $5 withdrawal receipts. You must be out of motherfucking cash. Sir, that's not an ATM. That's a parking kiosk. You weren't taking cash out. As I'm rolling through the receipts. You just paid for parking spot number 12 5 times. Those are your receipts, sir. How the fuck was I supposed to know that shit? That's some deceitful bullshit right there. Sir, there's a big sign on the kiosk that says pay at the window. And there were also instructions on it explaining what the kiosk is for. Looks just like an ATM. That's some bullshit. Sir, when has an ATM ever asked you for a parking space number to get started? It's clearly a parking payment kiosk. Can I have a motherfucking refund? I'm late. I got no time for this bullshit. I got to be in court in 15 minutes. Sir, I cannot process refunds. Your best bet is to call your bank, tell them what happened, dispute the transaction, just declare stupidity. Oh, just call the bank? Yes, sir. And what do I declare? Stupidity, sir. Okay, can I call now? So you're here, just in case they want to talk to you? I got to get this off my mind before I go into court. Yes, sure, sir. The ATM ass clown dialed the bank with his cell phone, set on speakerphone. He went through a myriad of automated menus until he finally got a live customer rep on the line. Thank you for calling Wells Fargo. May I help you? Yes, I need to declare stupidity, please. Excuse me, sir? What is it you need? I was told that I need to declare stupidity so I could get my $25 back. Can you help me? Sir, I'm not sure what I can assist you with. You need $25 back? Did someone use your card fraudulently? Shall I connect you to our fraud division? No! The parking machine stole my money. I thought it was an ATM. The guy here told me to call you and declare stupidity so I can get my money back. I'm declaring stupidity right now for my refund. Can you help me or not? Now the bank rep is talking through laughter. Okay, sir, let me see what I can do for you today. We'll try to get this resolved. 5 minutes passed on the phone, and after about 5 minutes spent on the phone declaring his stupidity, the ATM ass clown got it all worked out and went on with his day. As I watched ATM ass clown saunter out of sight, I was certain that he would be declaring stupidity sometime again in the very near future, most likely in front of a judge. So that was the I Declare Stupidity ATM ass clown story that's featured in A Whole Lot of Shenanigans. And there, folks, there are about 50 stories just like that, stupid people. But some of the best stories are where I get even with people for doing stuff, and I do stuff to rile these people up and get even with them.
I don't know if we have time to read another one, but another one would be, what about the one that is featured on the front of the book?
Well, actually, I want to save that, John, for a surprise, because I think when people see the cover, and many have, they're going to wonder what's doing it. I think that would be a great surprise inside the book. Okay. But is that one of your favorites?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My favorite is actually when I created a fake corporate office, which they'll read about too. People wanted a number of a corporate office that didn't exist, so I set one up for them. So, anything else you want to add for this episode, John?
No, that's good.
Well, that's about going to wrap it up for this episode of A Bunch of Malarkey. We thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have Johnny B back, and hopefully he'll be joining us again in the near future.
It'd be my pleasure.
And, folks, as I always say, beware. It's a shit show out there. Thank you for joining us. This has been A Bunch of Malarkey.